everyone. This is Clayton at UMA, and I'm here with Maki. We're going to chat a little bit about call options and KPI options with Sushi. Super appreciative of Maki taking a few minutes out of his day out of his late night to chat with us about this. Yeah, thanks, Maki. Appreciate it. So yeah, I chatted with you about a few questions I wanted to chat with you about. I'm going to actually reorder them. I want to ask you about the call options first. Appreciate that you guys have, participated with the call options launched on UMA, and just curious in general what, why you guys decided to support Sushi call options and what sort of interests you about call options and what value you think it brings to your community.
So the way I see it is we should always be incentivizing developers building on top of Sushi. In this project, we were able to see the UMA team taking a use case that was not novel per se. Call option on Sushi is very it is broadly available. You can go on the Octus, you can go on primitive finance. We even seeded some liquidity there, but this time we were seeing that you were paying the call option with XSushi to Sushi, meaning that people could earn fees and so on with it, and basically if you're XSushi bull, you could have more yield for it. Ultimately, all of this is potentially interesting to the community. Want to make sure more initiative like this pop ups from time to time, and that's why we decided to help out with all of this and making sure people willing to take such instrument could do so in a very liquid manner.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a good observation about it being paired with XSushi directly. So yeah, appreciate that perspective, and the alignment there is cool. And then I wanted to chat a bit about KPI options as well. I know that there was this quote that I came across from you with a Cointelegraph earlier this year that I liked, which is you said that you want to keep incentivizing people to productivize their assets, make them join a DAO, reward more devs so they can build what they love, introduce more people to DeFi, and then you closed with everyone will be a winner in 2021. Kind of within that spirit, I'm just curious, how KPI options, how you think of them in general, and if you think that they have potential with SushiSwap, and what that might look like.
I think KPI options are very interesting because we're now going to be able to incentivize behaviors from users, from traders, from developers, no matter who they are. This is a very interesting piece of the puzzle in this whole human coordination problem that we're facing in DeFi. It's very difficult to make sure that individuals react in the way that you're intending the system to be working, or a task to be done, unless there's proper incentives. And one of the best way to do so is by setting goals. If you want to making sure that developers are building on the platform, and you give them clear guidelines and incentives. In this case, we're talking about metrics. For example, I would very easily see a referral program or liquidity mining that once a LP pool reach, I don't know, let's say 10 million, the allocation point for this pool, or the rewards, quote unquote, are higher. That, in my opinion, makes total sense, and that's what KPI option could ultimately be enabling in the future. So to me, this is a win-win, and I'm all for it.
Awesome. Thanks for that perspective. So one thing that you and I and everyone building in DeFi struggle with right now is time, of course. And there are 100 cool integrations that we would all love to see happen if time wasn't a concern. And one of the really exciting things that I have experienced working with the Super UMA campaign, which is the campaign that's associated with our KPI option launch, is that people are getting very aligned, and they've been extremely supportive and are interested in, working on different outreach campaigns, and also just helping with the building of these integrations. And one idea that I had, in light of the fact that I'm sure you're a busy person, and I believe it's 11:30 at night for you right now, is basically trying to get the Super UMAs to help you with a proposal to go about doing this. So you could imagine basically having our community do some of the legwork, even go into your community and recruit some people who could, be better representatives of Sushi Swap's interests, and basically just like come up with a good proposal. And I'm just curious, like, if you're all for that idea generally, and then also curious, like, what directions you would want people to get started on if you're interested in doing this.
I mean, the more people getting involved with sushi governance is always a positive, I think, because all of these projects are one way or another getting governance fatigue at some point, I believe. Some people get less interested, something new pops up, so everyone kind of shift attention. I do think that this could be helpful to basically like get the ball rolling. I do think there's like a meaningful amount of work ready to be done. And not just at sushi, by the way. Like this is for many DAOs at the moment. I believe that everyone's pipeline is full.
Right.
If there's a project that is basically like turning their own thumbs on themselves, I think there's an issue. And ultimately, I think like whoever is ready to come by, incentivized or not, and wants to make a change or be part of the governance process is welcome in my opinion.
Sure.
As long as this is well intended, obviously, and it's going to be benefiting the sushi holders, I don't see any way where they would be received in a negative way.
Sure.
And like the KPIs option, ultimately, like if you want to reach some sort of metric, you need to assume that potentially like you need to change the way the protocols behave, or to make sure that it is easier to get there. Any ways to get to the goal for these superhuman, I assume, is going to be attainable, or is going to be like in their target.
Sure.
So that could be quite interesting. What I'm scared about, for example, would be someone could create like a KPI option to say we want our pool to reach, I don't know, 50 million in liquidity on Sushi Swap.
Mm-hmm.
And what could be annoying is a superhuman, or like anyone that wants to that buys a massive position in this KPI option for very cheap, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to lobby to get, I don't know, like arbitrary incentives for this particular pool.
Yep.
This could create issues and so on, but ultimately, I don't think KPIs options are going to be used in a bad manners. I do think that you need to be very careful about which metric you're going to pick. What if I pick, for example, I want to see 10,000 traders on Sushi by in the next 3 months. This wouldn't be necessarily Cybele resistant.
Right.
We could see like the KPI option being very loosely interpreted, I would say. And then in this case, you would potentially need to do some sort of litigation or something, or conflict resolution. I don't know. How do you feel like this should be dealt with if it
Sure.
is going to happen, Clayton?
I think that's a very excellent concern, Maki, and I think that essentially that would be something we would have to talk about in the proposal stage. Certainly, we would ideally not get to the stage where it was being gamed, because really, it's kind of just generally with decentralized finance, right? Once a protocol is out of the bag, you kind of have to live with it as it lands, and so there could be some like dispute resolution down the line to some degree, but for the most part, you want to design something that anticipates the potential for being gamed. So I would say that like we would want to build that into the proposal and like basically sort of run through a few different scenarios and understand what could potentially go wrong, and just make sure to choose like a KPI that's meaningful. So meaningful and ideally something that couldn't be gamed too readily or too profitably. We did talk about this with UMAS when we designed it focused on TVL. And so like, for instance, the ranges of payout that we chose, and also the just the particular metric that we chose, we basically sort of decided that like, even if this happens a little bit, it's actually not an entirely suboptimal condition. And it comes back to your specific concern around like somebody collecting up a bunch of these and basically becoming too incentivized to game it, right? So you kind of have to also plan that a little bit in your airdrop and anticipate that, like, are you giving this to a wide enough group of people that it's not likely to be pooled too centrally is one of the concerns. So ultimately, I think you're raising super good concerns. And I think there are things that we would have to consider when it comes to a proposal. Just as like a parting point on this, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm curious, like what you mentioned some, but what things could you imagine being good starting places for super humans to write a proposal for Sushi Swap? Like what things could you use help with?
I think the two most important things would be driving volume to Sushi Swap, and then making TVL grow on Kashi. I think these two would be very interesting to see how the superhumans could potentially write up a proposal around, Sushi giving out, building up basically like the KPI option to incentivize one or the two, and then work and coordinate to make it happen. Basically, I would be very surprised if, for example, I don't know, a proposal to get Kashi to it 100 million, or in the future, I don't know, like everyone is talking about layer 2 or scalability because the network on Ethereum at the moment is quite congested. I would be very surprised to see if we could potentially, once we have a layer 2 deployment, incentivize people to kind of migrate their LP position. And if we reach a certain point, then everyone is kind of rewarded.
Sure.
Or whether it is with maybe a transition from MasterChef V1 to V2, that could be also very, I think, interesting to gamify and make to align incentives with everyone. Ultimately, any proposal is going to be welcome to be, to grow the ecosystem at Sushi. I'm actually very excited to see what the superhuman come up with, and hopefully we can vote on this very soon and make it happen.
That's awesome. That's very exciting to hear. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat about this. So I think I will give you an out now so you can go to bed or probably get on your next call. But is there anything else you wanted to make sure to add before we call it?
I think we're going to see a lot of use case for KPI option moving forward. And I don't think we're going to be the only protocol leveraging it. I know they're a little bit complicated to wrap your head around at first, but once you get it, once you pretty much understand, hey, we give you this goal, hit the goal, and you're going to get more. Everyone is going to be clicking with it. And we're not going to see like, quote unquote, stupid incentives in maybe 1 year from now. I think that's going to be very key. Like threshold and making people like hit goals is key in my opinion to coordination. So we're very excited to see where this goes, and hopefully we're going to be leveraging KPI option with Sushi Swap very soon.
Maki, you are the man with your very generous quotable quote right there. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. Super grateful for you taking the time, man. Appreciate it. And yeah, have yourself a good rest of your night.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Have a good one.
All right, cheers.